Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show that talks about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire together and we share our stories of connection and realization and insight, and we connect together on this other dimension of storytelling and awareness and downloads and truth and whatever else you want to call it. But we can connect and we can understand each other a little bit better, and we can glimpse somebody else's journey, and maybe that brings us something for ourselves. And I love these conversations. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I am very fascinated by the mystical, the spiritual, the expanded self, and the universe and what we're here for. I love all those kind of conversations, and I love to have them on the show. And I always have fabulous guests that contribute to the conversation in a beautiful way, and today is no different. Today, I welcome Dr. Leslie Wells to the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Leslie Wells.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for all that you're doing through the Hummingbird Show, being that little fluttering being who's moving from flower to flower and connecting us. I really appreciate all the energy you're bringing and the community you're creating.
Thank you, Dr. Leslie. Well, this is really exciting. So you are just amazing. Your journey, just in a nutshell, we're going to hear about it more, but you're actually a doctor of chiropractic, an international speaker, an author, radio show talk host yourself, and holistic energy healing facilitator, life coach, entrepreneur, and the founder of the E.V.E Consciousness movement, which we're going to find out more about. I'm really excited to get into that. But you actually have done some amazing, incredible work. You've actually even gotten some selling books, and your work with Joe Vitale. So I want to hear all about all of that, and also especially just about the EVE and what that means for us on the awakening journey that we're in right now. So what I want to start is like your journey of awakening. I know that it started for you pretty early on your journey with your own body even. So like you're embodying this. So I want to hear more about this. Tell us more.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carrie. So, probably like you and a lot in your community, there's an awareness already that we've come here as soul, and we've come here with a soul map and a plan and a destiny, so to speak, that we want to fulfill while we're here in this body, in this world, in this mind. And I believe that to reach that destiny, often we are born with challenges that ultimately lead us to our greatest gifts, okay? And for me, well, let's just say as a child, it means I was a very sensitive being, and I incarnated into a dynamic in my family that caused me to internalize a lot of negativity. I was kind of a peacemaker, and there was conflict in my home and between my parents. And when we internalize resistance, okay, when we internalize emotional energy that we're not connecting with and digesting and processing, it becomes tension patterns in the physical body. And I say this now on the other end of this journey, but as a child, none of us had any idea. But ultimately, I developed a very deformed spine. So I developed a condition called scoliosis. It was severe idiopathic scoliosis. And I had surgery to fuse most of my spine when I was 14 years old. So that was a massive endeavor. I was in the hospital for almost 2 months and a body cast for 9 months. So, that was a crux in my life that, number one, led me to determination to be free, to be active, to go against the odds and people's thoughts of you're going to be limited. And I was determined not to be. So just giving this as an example, this is how it works in life. And when we receive the experiences of contrast, we get a choice. And we either let it move us down into feeling like I'm more limited by this, or let it challenge us into more clarity of what we're determined to have, you see. And so for me, that clarity came, and ultimately, long story short, it bumped me into a path that decided I wanted to help other people. I wanted to help people with their spinal conditions. And so ultimately it took me into becoming a chiropractor. Let's just say I moved into cheerleading, and I had an aerobic studio in my early 20s. it seems absurd, really, that I had this big rod in my spine. I was teaching 3 classes a day. So I had a lot of back pain and sciatica, and it landed me in a chiropractor's office perfectly, because my destiny needed that I experience this type of thing and decide to go down the path of becoming a healing facilitator. So it started as a chiropractor. And then at the same time as I started moving down this path, I was always also having a spiritual awakening that really, I had a dream after going through kind of a dark night of the soul. In my early 20s, I went through a young marriage and divorce, and really went into a time of feeling very lost. I had been a strong Christian as a child. I was raised and fully embraced the Christian paradigm, and really had a deep love for God, whatever you call that essence. And at that time I called it God, and I've gone through eras of calling that many different things or nothing at all, right? And I had a departure from the religious system. So I came to a place of seeing the fallacies and the limitations and really the contradictions where the religious system, as I experienced it, was actually in conflict even with the teachings of the Bible. And there were a lot of things in the church that weren't even in the Bible. And that was before I even understood the origins of the Bible and a lot of other things. But let's just say I came to this place of breaking away from the belief system that I was raised with, and then went through this dark night of inner searching. I called myself agnostic. Agnos means to question. And I was just standing in the question, which actually is a very powerful place to be. Standing in the question is pretty freaking awesome. And so eventually I had this incredible dream. For 6 months, I had been turning back to my old paradigm and crying out to God because I felt so lost. I'd gone into the nightclubs of Atlanta, and an emptiness within myself that I really can't explain very well, but I just was seeking for something. And I ended up looking back saying I was happier when I believed, even if I can't prove it, whether it's true or not. I choose to believe this thing. So I started praying every day and kind of reading some scriptures. And every day I'd wake up and look in the mirror and nothing changed. And after 6 months of asking, and let's just say, religious paradigm or not, I was sending out an impulse into the field of the infinite, calling upon, please reach out to me. Please come to me. Please touch me. I was asking for change. And I was asking for an engagement that I wasn't experiencing. I felt the emptiness. And from that emptiness, just like with the spinal surgery where the contrast said, you know what, I'm going to be active, I'm not going to get sick. I felt the emptiness, and it made me have a clear intention for connection. And so after 6 months, I had this dream. And, you know, I can tell you the images that were in the dream, but it's more the energy and the experience that I can't even put words to. But I saw a waterfall. I saw a rainbow. I saw a white dove in flight, and then I saw the face of what I imagined to be the face of Jesus. And I woke up sobbing. My heart was just open. It was just open. It was so open, and I felt like I was connected with the heart of God. And I called my dad at 2:30 in the morning crying and went, Dad, I've met God. So, you know, however you want to, I could even translate that story into a scientific story now and talk about vibrational frequency and what happened at that point. I won't do that right now, but I'm just saying we can look at what happens in life from different levels. But that point was a turning point for me. The next day I got in my car and I went to a local convenience store. When I got out of the car, the image of a man's face came to my mind, a man that I knew from the gym, and I hadn't seen him in like a year. And I walked in the door, and there he stood. And I was like, what? right? So let me tell you that that point was when I entered into what I call the guided life. Okay. I started hearing the inner voice. I started seeing things before they happened. I started tapping in progressively more and more to that which isn't obvious to our little mind and senses. Okay. So that was really how this thing was launched. I was guided to go to chiropractic school. And the last 2 years of chiropractic school, I was guided to go somewhere else in the world. And I had a little argument about that. I was like, what? I've never thought. So, you know, some of your audience will know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you do, where you get this little internal conversation
Oh yeah,
where
familiar with that.
spirit, you know, where source is going, and you're going, wait a minute, let's discuss this. I want to
Yeah,
negotiate,
it's not
right?
convenient.
Exactly. So I negotiated with God and I said, okay, it was just that prompting, just that knowing, that inner drive that said, you're going somewhere else. And I was like, what do you mean? I'd never thought of leaving the country of America. And so I said, well, let's make a deal. If I'm going somewhere else when I'm brand new out of my training to become a chiropractor and I'm starting a new career and I'm going to where I don't know anyone, at least make it somewhere where they speak my language. Okay, so let's make a deal. Make it an English speaking country, please. But where is it that I'm supposed to go? So once again, I'm standing in the question. Okay. And then one day I'm at the snack bar at school, and a student was standing next to me. His name was Tom Little. He's Canadian, and he had just come back from playing rugby in New Zealand for 6 months. So he was talking to me about that. And when I heard him say New Zealand, I got goosebumps everywhere. You know, I call them God bumps. Okay. Every
Yeah.
hair went, right? So I felt this. So that was new for me. That was the first time I had gotten this physical sensation punctuating something that just came to my consciousness. So it punctuated that name of New Zealand. And then, you know, when I left there and Tom and went back to the classroom, we were getting ready for our next lecture. There was a white book on every desk, about 170 desks in that room. I walked in, sat down, picked up that white book, and the title on the book said, "The New Zealand Report on Chiropractic." Our lecture. Yep. And of course, once again, every hair was buzzing, every chill bump was happening on my arms and legs and scalp, back of my neck. So I was like, you know, especially early on, you get to these places, it's almost scary. It's like, what? Oh my gosh.
Well, you feel like it's kind of, isn't it kind of interesting? Because I've had those connections too. And I sometimes I feel like, is this only my reality? Like, is this whole thing just happening right now just for me? Because who does that? Like, who has a conversation, you get the comments, and then the report says New Zealand report? Like, who does that? That's like not for everybody in the room. So
I know.
It's just fascinating. I don't know how it all works, but it sure is fascinating. Okay, so yeah, I agree with you about the curiosity and the standing and the question. And it's funny because when I was prompted to publish my book, The Second Wave, I was told to put it in the agnostic category. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, why am I putting it in this category? You know, it's the best category for it. Like, everybody's in that category is like, this is a great book. So I think it's because of what you just said. So anyway, just that was
so you put it in agnostic. So it means, you know, here we are. This is for those who are open and seeking. They're standing in the question.
They're standing in the question. They're like, well, what is this about? And they're willing to consider the possibility of what I channeled, right? Just like you're like opening up, like, I'm willing to consider the possibility of anything right now.
Yeah.
So you went to New Zealand then?
Yeah, I did. So honestly, I mean, you know, it's interesting, Carrie. You know how some people go, oh my gosh, you're so brave. I can't believe you would pick up. And I'm like, are you kidding me? After you have a few things like this happen, it gets scary not to follow. Like, there's no way you're not going to go. It was,
yeah, you have
you know
to.
what I'm saying?
It's too combined. It's like too many, one, two, and then you can't ignore that, because then it's sort of like, well, now you're on the journey with the breadcrumbs. You're like, where's the next breadcrumb?
Yeah. And sometimes it's like a whole freaking loaf. You know, there's not
Yeah.
even crumbs, just hits you up on the head and you're like, okay, I get it, I promise. You know, and so I did. In fact, I announced to my family, I didn't even know where New Zealand was. I didn't know what the weather was like there. The only time I'd ever heard that term was on Captain Crunch cereal commercials when I was a kid. You know, Captain Crunch and the Crunchberry Monster were on this ship that got lost at sea and went all the way down to New Zealand.
New Zealand. It's funny that you even remember that story from your
I
childhood.
know.
Like it's all set up from your childhood too.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Isn't it
Yes,
funny? So,
totally.
so yes, I announced to my family, my mother, who was estranged to me at the time, that we were in a rift actually, and she kind of resurfaced in my life, which was a miracle in itself. And she offered to take me on a trip to New Zealand to explore it before I graduated as a graduation gift. So, and that's funny because I had just read a book called Seeds of Greatness, and I had decided to hold as an intention a bridge being built between me and my mother.
Oh my gosh, I'm writing down that title because I'm currently in a spot like that.
Right?
Seeds of Grace, you said?
Seeds of Greatness. Seeds of Greatness.
Greatness. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And it just, well, I'll give you, as long as you're on that path, Carrie, a good friend of mine, Dale Bach, wrote a book called If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother.
Oh, I'm gonna love that book.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom. If
If it's not one thing, it's your mother. Okay. So
okay, I'm
really,
looking that up.
honestly, and if I may speak to that for a second, Carrie, just to take a quick aside, a lot of us are working with our energies with our mother, and it is because we incarnated as souls and with an intention to bring greater focus upon our relationship to the feminine. The feminine essence is represented by your mother, by your daughter if you have a child, right? If you have a daughter, by your sister. It's going to be represented by the close blood relatives in your life. And so that you can work with this energy and we can learn what we believe about the feminine and what our relationship is to the feminine within ourselves by looking at what we project onto our female family. Okay.
It's a really interesting inquiry. I don't know. I don't think I shared this with you, but I'm actually in the middle of a book, a new channeling from White Buffalo Calf Woman that's called Fierce Love, Healing the Mother Wound.
Oh.
Like tonight is the 8th class. I was told to do 8 weeks with a group, whoever wanted to come, for free, and we'll do the 8 weeks of healing and listening and reflecting, and then the book's going to come out of that. So it's like perfect you're handing me all this right now because I really need these pieces because it's like it's coming. I totally agree with you. We're in the philosophy that I've been given, the indigenous philosophy. We're going to make a bridge right now. This is so great because we were talking about making bridges on this call. Is that we're in the Eagle and the Condor. It's the prophecy of the Eagle and the Condor flying in the sky together. The masculine mind and the feminine heart, the Western mind, the eagle, and the South American heart, the passion, the love. All of these influence, I'm getting chill bumps, they're all coming together to fly in the sky together. And so within each one of us and collectively, we're learning how to do this, the masculine, the feminine, the mind, the heart. How do we blend them together? And I know you've got guidance on that because
oh my gosh,
I've
got chills right now.
All chills up and down my body.
Yeah, me too. So I'm gonna, if I may, just share what's coming in the moment. Okay.
Yes, please.
Just this week brought through a channeled inspired session with someone where I was getting this image of the eagle and the meaning that was brought through. And if I may, and this will relate to the E.V.E consciousness in just a minute, but when you're getting those images of the eagle and the condor and bringing the masculine and the feminine energies to this high altitude, both of these birds can fly very high.
Woo!
Okay, they can fly very high. So understand that our calling now in this new era of human consciousness evolution, in this new era of us stepping into our destiny as thought form creators, where we design our own world, where we create our heaven on earth, the only way to transcend the limitations of polarity consciousness, that means us getting caught in the drama, caught in the fear, caught in the judgment, caught in the war and the resistance. The only way to transcend that is to rise up and take on board the vision of the eagle and the condor. When we fly high and we look at life down below, we're not caught up in it. We take a higher view. We rise above. We move out of that infant perspective that says me, me, me. This is all about me. You know, we were talking about this a minute ago, Carrie. You know, Mercury's in
God, it's starting to make
retrograde. Every
sense.
my computer ate 4 hours of my work. I mean, you know, and then I go into my little drama. It's all about me. I get really mad. And then as I expand and go, oh, Mercury's in retrograde. You know what? There's an energy going on here. Let's not take it personally. And then I talk to you and go, oh yeah, you go, yeah, me too, all of this. And I go, you know what? I'm not alone. There's nothing personal about this. This is a consciousness experience.
You're actually expanding me right now. I got to tell you, Leslie, oh my goodness, thank God for this conversation. Because one of the things, I know what my spirit purpose is. Like, I know what I'm called to do. I am in my knowing on that. I'm a messenger. I am here to share very vulnerably, transparently my experience, because it's not just for me, it's for everybody. It's everybody is sharing a piece of the puzzle. They just can't articulate it as well as I can. I am gifted in that way. And so I'm here to share. And well, my family doesn't understand that, because they're not they think it's all about them. And I'm like, no, don't you understand? Like, this is our like little tiny piece of the big puzzle. Like, it's like the microcosm of the huge macrocosm.
Yes.
And I love you. And it's not about blaming and shaming you at all. It's about calling it to awareness. And I want to use that word awareness. It's calling it up to awareness so that we can see it, feel it, heal it, and transcend it and move it to a new place. We have to see it, become aware of it. I'm called to call it into awareness. And it hurts to call it into awareness because I don't want to hurt anybody, but almost like we have to rip the Band-Aid off of some things. I think it's just, we have to, I feel like.
So if I may speak to that as well.
Please.
So you're talking about calling into awareness and really, you know, bringing out of the closet.
Yeah, opening the closet door.
Right? And this is the time for that with others and within ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I've got a quick little formula for that. It's called the AAA. Okay. So number one, the first A is aware. Okay. So being aware of, this can be within yourself or with someone else, but understand that in truth, it's all about you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just get to be the guinea pig.
They're mirroring and reflecting you. And when you change your own consciousness within yourself, the dynamic on the outside will change. Jenny just left, my client who I do holistic healing modalities. And we just did some work that was unraveling some tangles in her subconscious mind about her mother. And her mother has been acting differently suddenly. And then she said the things that used to really push her buttons about her mom aren't bothering her. Like, why don't I feel that old awful feeling, right? Our judgment and our feeling of victimhood and all that twist starts to melt, and our dynamic on the outside is changed because we've untwisted the energy within ourselves.
Totally,
okay?
Totally. And it's just finding the thing, you know, so that's, I feel like these things are multi-layered, and we're doing it together in our own lives. And each time one of us unravels a piece of the puzzle, it sort of ripples out and helps everybody else.
Yes. Yes. So we are helping the planet when we help ourselves. Absolutely. Okay. So here's the 3 A's. The first A is aware. Okay. So like you said, bringing up awareness. The second A is acknowledge.
Acknowledge it's happening.
Becoming aware. Yep. You're giving it a voice. You're saying, whether it's speaking it to someone else or acknowledging it to yourself and saying, you know what, this is what this is. I'm going to write it down. I'm acknowledging how I'm feeling really, or I'm acknowledging what this struggle feels like for me. I'm acknowledging my experience is what
Yes, acknowledging the experience. Validating is another word, but yeah, acknowledging. Yes.
Yes. I'm acknowledging my experience, which makes me more present with myself.
Yeah, because I'm
right?
not trying to hide it or lie to myself or ignore it or step over it or any of that stuff, which doesn't
Yes.
work.
Yeah, I'm not trying to disconnect and avoid myself and this energy of my experience. So that's the second A, is acknowledge. The third A is allow. Allow.
Allow.
Okay?
That's the piece I have trouble with because I want to change.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
allowing piece is like, but we're supposed to change. We are ascending the consciousness of the planet right now. And I'm very successful when I do it just with myself. It
But when,
works every time.
okay, so it
With
doesn't mean,
others,
so remember that when you acknowledge, you're giving a voice to,
yeah.
but it, so now I'm going to use some religious terms for a minute, but that are universal and very powerful. Okay, so when we allow, we forgive, and forgiveness is the path to heaven. Get it? Your heaven on earth comes when you resist something. And so if you go, okay, I really want to change this, that means I'm judging this, I'm making it wrong. And then so we're bringing judging, constricting, resistant energy into our field as we look at a piece of our experience, right? So
Okay.
the way to transmute that energy is to be, guess what? In the feminine.
Let it be.
The feminine. So the masculine says, let's change. We're gonna rearrange all this
Ah,
and
see, I'm so
reconstruct
good
it.
at that. That's why my
See?
favorite guide is White Eagle. Because
See, isn't
like
that
it's the
funny?
masculine. I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
White
So you
Buffalo
get,
Women's been a little harder.
there's all this conversation about the divine feminine and the raising of the goddess image energy and the Me Too movement, right? There's all this thing happening when really, I mean, we can sit here and raise our fists and say, yes, this is what needs to happen. But the truth is, the energy of suppressing and making that wrong is within ourselves. We've been doing that because even when we step out and go, hey, this needs to change, we're being masculine right there. We're not
Oh
even
yeah,
being
you're
in the
right.
feminine energy. So the feminine is the passive, it's the receptive vehicle. It is the allowance, okay? And there is amazing power within that. And when we learn to, honestly, the Christ consciousness is feminine energy. That is part of the E.V.E Consciousness teachings, the E.V.E Consciousness teachings. The Christ consciousness is unconditional love. And from the East or the Buddhist teachings, it says, I allow myself to release my craving and my aversion. My craving that says, these relationships need to be different. It needs to be like this. I want more respect. That, don't look at me that way. And I can't believe that you won't respond to me when I want you to. Okay. Or I'm sorry, that's the resistance part, is saying, don't look at me that way. The craving is, oh, I just want peace and harmony. I want them to respect me. I want to have this real bonded, So if I'm clinging to this and hating life where it is right now because I don't have that, or I'm resisting what I don't like, this is what causes my misery. Okay? It's resistant energy. And it is old energy. Okay?
Yeah, because like I got a lesson around that in the jungle with the aversion thing because there was a spider that was scaring the heck out of me, right? And so I ended up, the way to solve that was actually holding the spider's skin, like it shed its skin, and I was terrified of it, but I put it in my hand and just was with it until
Wow.
it dissolved. Because we can't, like, that lesson was exactly what you said about aversion. Like, we can't be having aversion. But what's interesting about what you said too is my son's been teaching me a little bit about this. So interesting. He's like, if you're really going for the light and you're saying you only want like love and you only want light and all of this, he said that actually is negative.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
would, what? And he's been
Yes.
saying this to me and trying to teach me this. So this is so
Yes.
interesting
Now your
because
son's
light
bringing
workers are like, I
wisdom.
only want the light.
Yeah. Right. Right. So, and it's about understanding that this world is not broken and that something hasn't gone horribly wrong here. Okay. So when we begin to embrace that there is actually a perfection to all that is, then we begin to rise to a higher consciousness. This is the condor and the eagle. We're flying high, we're looking down. You know what Bette Midler's song was, from a distance, you know, everything looks so beautiful when I look from the distance. So when I move up out of the limited illusion of the it's just about me consciousness down here, from that higher height, we know that we are infinite souls. We know that nothing can harm us, nothing can be lost in this universe, and that all is balanced, even when we look upon what seems horrific from this human perspective. The way we begin to change this world is to, number one, stop wanting to change this world. It's about love. And as we move to unconditional love, and this is where the teachings of the church are very, very pertinent, okay? So we have this image of the Christ through Jesus being crucified on a cross. So get that he's suffering physical torture right now. He's suffering emotional betrayal by one of his own disciples, or more than one really, and injustice. I get that injustice is one of the most powerful, difficult challenges of this whole journey. Injustice.
It sure is. Yeah.
Okay. So he's suffering injustice. He's falsely accused. He's being crucified and executed for doing nothing wrong, for only bringing goodness to the earth. And he's suffering physical pain. And during that time, I don't mean after, get that it's easier to forgive something that's in your past. And the further in the past it is, the easier it is to forgive. Okay?
Or forget.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And Edgar Cayce, who was known as the founder of the New Age movement, he coined the term New Age. He was the sleeping channel. Edgar Cayce says, we haven't really forgiven until we forget. Like, if it really is forgiven, it doesn't even come to your mind anymore. Think of that as a
That
stance,
is very,
right?
very true. Yeah.
Right?
Because
So,
you haven't crystallized it, you know? So like when it's almost like it gets crystallized in time, you're like bookmarked it. You know, like
right?
this thing I'm not forgetting.
Yes. Like, there was that thing, you know, they really owed me. I was really wronged there, that person, but I forgive them their debt anyway. Aren't I
That is
special?
so not true.
Right?
It's
You
not
see?
true. It's a spiritual bypass, actually.
Well,
And
it
there's
is.
still feelings around it. That's the
Yes.
thing. There's still
Yes.
locked up feelings. And until you
Yes.
actually process that and do the reversal, that's like the radical forgiveness process,
Yes.
which is super
Radical
helpful.
forgiveness. Awesome. Awesome. Radical forgiveness is what will transform this planet and our lives individually. And it starts right here and with our own family members.
Which is so hard. I gotta
Guess what?
say.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've been through the spiritual path and connected with spiritual communities who go, oh, you know, I've left behind that biological family. Here's my soul family. It's so much easier. We all agree and nod our heads together, right? But guess what? You as a soul chose who you were going to be born to.
Exactly why I can't leave it. Yeah, because I know that's true.
Yeah.
Leslie, they tell me to say, they're like, you have your soul family. And I'm like, yes, it's so much easier because I love it connecting with people like you and other people that are on the same page I'm on. It's great, but I'm not done. I'm not done because it's not clear.
Yeah.
I know when it's clear. It's not clear. Yeah.
Well, understand though that again, I mean, these are our best tools to work with to be able to get clarity on what's really within us. What is my relationship to the feminine, right? When I look at my mother, when I look at my sister, when I look at my daughter, how do I perceive the feminine? And look for ways that we judge the feminine in certain ways. The feminine's a villain. She's destructive. She withholds her emotion. She's not nurturing, whatever that is. If you've got a mother wound, you know all about this, you know.
Oh yeah,
Again,
this has been coming up big time. Yeah.
A lot of us on the spiritual path. So let's look at this way for a second, Carrie. So you know how we said, okay, I started off with this twisted spine and this wound and surgery needed to launch me into what I'm here to do. Okay. So there's many advanced souls who come here to help strengthen and heal the feminine consciousness. So what are we going to do? We're going to incarnate to a terrible, painful mother relationship. So that means there's going to be a wound around the feminine, and it helps us then to be focusing on the feminine because of our mother wound, which ultimately will bring energy and the healing balm, because we're not going to be fully at peace and in our hugest power and glory until we have found healing of that mother wound. And as we heal that, we're feeding the field the healing of the feminine wound on the planet. You get it? We're
So
contributing to that.
true. It's so funny because I work with plant medicine sometimes to help me to open up and get my ego out of the way. And in one of those ceremonies, white buffalo calf woman came in and was having some conversation with me and was like, listen, you are doing this book, Fierce Love, Healing the Mother Wound. But I also need to tell you, there's no wound. That's
Right.
medicine. I was like, like that's where we're going with it. Is like, it's all medicine for us on our soul's journey.
Yes, yes. So what we perceive as the wound is our catalyst. It's what's needed to launch us to the next level and launch us to the next level. So ultimately, we get to that condor eagle view and we look down and go, it's all perfect. It's all beautiful. There is no wound. It was the necessary catalyst, boom, 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 to move up. Which leads me to, if I may, I want to give a quick word about E.V.E Consciousness.
Yes.
Right? Which is so ultimately my journey brought me all the way up to the downloaded teachings of E.V.E Consciousness, which came to me in 2012. Every time I got in the shower, it's crazy. Water is an energetic conduit, and that's why the baptism in water is a tradition in the Christian church. We've used water in sacred ritual forever in many different ways, in many cultures. And so when the shower would come, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'd have all these realizations. And now my purpose, which I know I've been prepared for through my life, and we all are on that path. We're all leading up to the grand finale of what we really came here to accomplish. And mine is to be the messenger of the new era that is upon us. And it started in 2012. And the paradigm that I communicate this energetic experience through is called E.V.E Consciousness. And of course, that acronym spells the word Eve, and which is kind of like new beginnings. This is moving into, in a way, the new Eden is where we're going, okay? And E.V.E stands for energetic vibrational exchange. Okay, it is the era of creation. And as it was shown to me, it's important for us to understand where we've been as we embrace where we are and where we're going, because the past has gifts. The past was not just meaningless. We've been evolving step by step as a human race and as a consciousness field on the planet from the beginning of time. The beginning of time is when we stepped into this three-dimensional reality that has linear time. Outside of that, time is not linear, right? So in this linear time and linear distance reality, which Albert Einstein taught us all about half a century ago, we have been progressing and step by step evolving as a race. And stage one of that evolutionary journey is called polarity consciousness. So when we first came here, and if we look at the symbolism of the Garden of Eden, and the first humans partook of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So imagine when we eat something, it becomes us, and it actually becomes our cells in our body. So when we consumed knowledge of good and evil, and that knowledge resonated all the way into the cells of our physical bodies, we now have crossed the line, stepped through a veil into a realm of polarity experience. That means we're in this realm of linear time and space. And in this linear time and space, third dimensional reality, we are living a comparison contrasting world. Okay, we see tall versus short, near versus far. You know, distance is linear. So I'm right over here, and oh my gosh, if you're in New Zealand, that's such a long way away. Okay, and time, you know, soon versus later, and ugly versus pretty, pleasure versus pain, right? Love versus hate, light versus dark. We wouldn't have a light worker community if we didn't have darkness as well. There would just be the one thing that has no name. You know, when you're a fish and you're swimming in the water, you don't know the water's there. It's, you know, when you pull yourself out and you're flopping on land, then you realize you were in the water, right? So when we have the contrast in this reality, it creates a particular effect, and it causes a consciousness experience that causes us to evolve in a particular way. Okay, so stage one was this pure polarity consciousness. In that pure polarity, and I'm going to say the Old Testament of the Bible depicts this era quite nicely. Okay, humanity is walking with this whole sense of shame and condemnation and damnation by a God that's a long way away. And we're shamed because we did the wrong thing, we made mistakes, and we feel like we're naked and need to be covered. This is the whole biblical story of the beginnings of the human journey, okay? And then we're cast out of the Garden of Eden. So understand that our experience of polarity needed to transcend beyond just what's happening here and now, but in the afterlife. So we see this ideal of heaven versus hell, of reward versus punishment, okay? And in that era, we were given an outside-in set of rules, just like a lot of toddlers and young children need an outside-in set of rules. They're not advanced enough to be wise enough to be well within themselves and be in touch with their own inner promptings of what's the best way to go. So as tiny little infant beings, we needed an outside-in morality, okay? And as we're navigating through this time, we're advancing. And the more we have suffered, suffering ultimately leads to compassion, okay? We're humbled by suffering. And when we've suffered enough, we remember our own suffering when we see it in someone else. And that's the beginnings of empathy and compassion. We see the pain in their face, we remember our own pain. And when we've evolved that far to remember our pain when we see it in someone else, we're beginning to touch on the heart. And that is when the second era began, when the leading edge of human consciousness was touching on readiness to engage with the heart. We had the beginnings of the era of Christ consciousness, okay? Now that Christ consciousness era was universal, but in my paradigm, we have it represented by the embodiment of the divine through a human vessel that was bringing forth the frequencies of unconditional love and teaching a new message that was in complete contradiction, seeming contradiction to what had been before. And so this is the feminine. Understand that polarity consciousness is the masculine, okay? The gift of polarity consciousness is when I compare, I'm wired to compare and contrast. I'm observing and perceiving and concluding about my world all the time. I'm observing the tone that that person just used in their voice when they said that word to me. You see? And instantly, like there's just millions of bits of data being processed all the time as we are observing, comparing, and concluding. And that's how we learn. That's how we evolve. So from these comparisons, we end up creating preferences and choice. So we focus on something that we intend or want. And that focus, that creation of an intention, that determination that says, this is what I want, that's masculine. Masculine energy is that clarity, that choice, that determination, okay? Christ consciousness comes in and says allow. That was step 2 or step 3 of our AAA, right? Christ consciousness says allow. Love unconditionally. Forgive them. You don't have to pay them back and punish them to balance the scales out, okay? You're higher than that now. And there's a deeper intimacy. So we're more connected with our own hearts into me, see. And we're more connected with an outer God, that now we feel there's a bridge to that distant God. Through this pathway, through this Son of God, I can partake in communion with God. I can be connected to that source of life, okay? I'm not as far away from that anymore, okay? And we're told to love our brother as ourselves, love our neighbor as ourselves, which first says love yourself, forgive yourself, release the old shame and self-condemnation that you had for yourself, and then forgive them. And as you do, your frequency is rising. Your energetic frequency that you're emitting to the field is rising. And now in 2012, we've moved into the era of energetic vibrational exchange consciousness. This is the new era of creation. And when we, in this E.V.E Consciousness era, come into the right balance of the masculine and the feminine, and we rightly work with our minds to align with our intentions and to hold unconditional love as a receptive vehicle, that choice and focus, when we are holding a field of peace with what is as it is right now, ends up being the perfect creation formula. When we bring, this is my intention, and at the same time, I don't desperately need it.
Yes.
Because I love what is right now, right? Most of us, we get an intention and then we hold hatred for the lack of it. Like, doggone it.
Yeah.
How come that partner hasn't come for me yet? I've been intending to have a husband for 3 years, and how, you know, and I'm so alone and I'm so miserable, and how come I don't have my beloved? Or how come I don't have that career of my choice? As long as we're hanging with that frequency that doesn't forgive and embrace and embody what is right now, we create a resistant frequency. We're not a vibrational match to what we intend. And so modern neuroscience gives us doorways in to actually be able to take charge of our minds in ways that's never been possible before. And the energetic frequency on the planet since 2012 has shifted to a new supportive range that we as humans are now ready and able and fully supported to take these steps to become miracle makers, right? To where we can become more and more in the habit of right thought and holding self-responsibility for our thoughts, for our perceptions, and realizing that every thought we think is emitting a vibrational communication that our reality is going to bring back to us. So we're creating what's coming back. So if we're fighting what we see, we're fighting the result of what we've created ourselves already. And that fight is sending out that turbulent signal that's going to bring more for us to fight, okay? Just like, you know, I remember these little examples of a mother and a child, and the child is crying and she goes, "You better stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about."
Yes, I've heard that.
Life can do that, right? So if we're laughing, life will give us something to laugh about. If we're crying, life will give us something to cry about. If we're at a state of peace, life will bring us a reflection of that peace. So we have to remember that the state we're holding within ourselves is creating our upcoming future. And what we're experiencing in our reality right now is an outcome of what we've created in the past, vibrationally. And as more and more of us are stepping onto this consciousness awareness that your community is carrying, then we will be becoming responsible thinkers, responsible emitters of a vibrational frequency, moving more and more into a perpetual state of intentional inner peace and unconditional love. And we will create an increasing field of that to where we will hit critical mass, and humanity will create heaven on earth because of our advanced emission of a high frequency that shows up as only that. And the Bible foretells this. The book of Revelations talks about 1,000 years of peace on earth. And I see this time, whether it's literal years in the way that we measure it now or something else, this is what will hold such a high frequency on planet Earth that ultimately we ascend. And this earth can no longer hold the density of matter.
Yeah,
So
the
we
density.
go to a higher frequency. We go to a higher dimensional reality. This is when we bump up to fourth or fifth dimension. So this is the story of E.V.E Consciousness. And what sits beside it is the technology of faith, which is the tools. E.V.E Consciousness is the new story. It's the understanding. The technology of faith is the how-to. Okay, how am I going to get there? How am I going to apply this, right? And if I may, I wanted to say that the first trainings of the E.V.E Consciousness tools is being launched in April on the Miracle Makers Cruise.
Oh, it's exciting. Yeah. Look at that. In Australia and New Zealand.
Yes.
The birthplace.
That exactly. Exactly. So so people who know me know that I've come back to America. And when I was visiting America in 2010, I wrote a cosmic order for a new relationship. And 5 days later, my now husband showed up on the beach.
Yay.
So I love coaching people on how to align with their specific intentions. I've been living a miracle making life for a number of years now, and my husband and I have together. And so I even have a free video online walking a group of actually women from around the world, you'll see them on the screen, through making their own cosmic order. So, and you can make it for whatever you want to focus on. So I do have an hour-long coaching video of walking you through that if people want to get to it.
I'm going to provide that link for people for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. And it's on the website, which is EVEConsciousness.com. EVEConsciousness.com. They can get for free that cosmic ordering video, and also I have put out free segments of the downloaded teachings in writing, the book of the introduction to E.V.E Consciousness, which is called Path to Wealth Through Faith.com. Path to Wealth Through Faith. That's the end. And EVEConsciousness.com is where you can get that. That was another place where I argued with God. I was like, what? Why the money thing, right? And the message that came to me was, you must reach the masses through the core root wound of humanity, which is the root chakra, which is insecurity. And humans relate financial abundance to security. Okay, so we must start with that. We must start with that root insecurity and work up to the higher
Which
chakras.
is why, like, so many people that are awakening go through financial struggle, you know?
Yes.
It's like, that's the first step, you know? You got to, like, realize that that's not the source of your abundance. It's not the source of your security. It is just a thing, and things are not spirit, you know? I mean, spirit is the greater power that we are as well. And we're just playing around here with the things.
And that things are energy, and that money is energy. And often we have in our own minds a division between matter and spirit, which is an illusion.
It's an illusion, because it wouldn't exist without the spirit. Yeah. So.
Right. Well, it is spirit, really.
It is.
It's spirit, it's the bound energy versus the unbound energy. And so we're creating in the unbound realm with every thought. With every thought and feeling, we're creating in the unbound. But to bring that unbound energy into bound, which is its expression in the material world, is more advanced. It's more mature as a soul. When you get to where you are aligning, then you can create materially at
Like
the
that.
speed of thought,
Yeah,
at the speed of thought.
when you're aligned, that
Yes,
is the alignment. Yeah. And the more aligned you are to truth, your truth of your, I don't know, I like to call it my signal. My aligned to my true signal, things just happen like that when I speak it into form. You
exactly.
gotta be careful what I speak into form.
Exactly. So E.V.E Consciousness is about teaching people how to move more and more into mastery of that alignment intentionally until it becomes such a habit that it's just your natural state all the time. And miracles happen all the time. And then we're never feeling that sense of need. You know, most spiritual people are still holding a thing that says, I have to work hard and smart to make any money. And I need to struggle in the material world, which is just a lie. It's,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
not true, actually.
yeah, it's our
It's an
truth.
alignment. And then
Yes,
it'll happen really quickly because I've
yeah,
experienced that. I'm not always aligned. I mean, I practice at it, so I'm working on that. Up until now, I like to use that word too, is up until now, this is what I've been experiencing, and now I'm in the process of, which really helps me to make that bridge. Because I think what you're talking about here is we need to learn, we're learning how to bridge now, those of us who are ready for this new mastery level, we're learning how to bridge into the manifestation, into the alignment where we can, you know, our word is manifested into material form.
yes. And so then we're masters of both spirit and matter. And I call it crystallizing matter. It's bringing spirit, it's bringing consciousness into matter. There's such a thing as conscious wealth. Why should we be powerless in the material realm and limited? Or why should we feel
Hmm.
need? Okay, why should we not have 1,000% freedom of being able to maneuver in any way at any time? And when we do that, when we align with that freedom, then everything becomes available with ease. Okay, just like that, right? And so as we start to transcend, certainly in the past, it was one or the other. We weren't advanced enough to be spiritual and material, okay?
But
We
now we
had to
can
do,
blend the two because it's,
yes,
and I do
yeah,
feel that we're blending a lot of things right now. Like this eagle and the condor thing is
yes,
many layers. It's not just, it's multi-dimensional, multifaceted, and it's many different aspects that are blending together.
yes, yeah, yeah. So spiritual and religious paradigms all getting mixed up and blended in. Science, spirituality, scriptures. This is what E.V.E Consciousness blends it all in. Cultures, right? We've got the internet. We've got connection and communication all around the globe. We don't have the barriers culturally that we used to. We're all blending in because we're moving into this place of oneness. We're moving into this place of unity. And even the Democrats and the Republicans,
All of
right?
that stuff. They're
The
saying the
religious
same
and the
thing in different
spiritual.
ways.
Yeah, we're all coming to a new place of holding hands. And those that are on the leading edge of it all, we're quickly getting higher and higher to fly with that eagle and condor consciousness and see from that higher perspective. We're seeing through the eyes of source because we're connecting more and more with ourselves as vessels of source. We're not having this limited view that goes, you shouldn't have done that to me. You know, we're up here. That's more and more that will become our normal, and we're just at the beginning of this era. So those that are listening to this now and engaging with your teachings, Carrie, we're the leading edge. They're the head of the class. We've got to be vigilant and move
Yes.
into that mastery so that we can then call the others forward. We can show the way.
And you have to know you're not crazy. Okay, like
Yeah,
you are not crazy. You're actually just ahead of the curve. And that's the thing I've had to remind myself of over and over and over again through this process, because we don't see it out there, and so we think, oh well, we must not be doing it right because nobody else is doing it in our community or whatever. But when you start to, this is what really helped me, is when I started connecting with other people like you, when I started doing my podcast and I started having these conversations, I realized, oh, I'm okay. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm good. And I should be doing this. And yeah, not everybody gets it, and it's okay. And they'll get it when they're ready. So it's okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Jesus Christ was ahead of his time, and it didn't go very well for him with the masses, if you see it that way. Okay. Albert Einstein was ahead of his time. All of your leading scientists who moved us into new realizations, at first they were balked at, laughed at, imprisoned, or killed. Okay. So we are at the leading edge of this. And so we got to be big enough to go. There's going to be a lot of people that don't understand it. This goes against the old, and keep our vision on where we're going, which is into the new. It is empowerment. Don't let it pull you down. Don't let it pull you back into that old victimhood consciousness. We've moved from life happens to me to life happens through me.
Through me,
I'm in
not even
charge.
for me. It's through me.
Yeah, for me was Christ consciousness. Life happens for me. Oh, it's tough and I hate it, but there's a higher plan and it's all going to work for good. Okay, that was Christ consciousness. Now, you know what? I'm the creator. I'm responsible. What am I vibrating? Let me change this
What am I
right now.
choosing to think and project?
Yes.
And what am I seeing, witnessing, acknowledging? I like that you do the admit, the acknowledge, and all of that. And then, well, what do you want to create with that? Do you want to keep it the way it is, or do you want something different? And I think I want something different, and I can create that in my
So
reality.
then you're pulling in the choice of polarities to say, thank you for the pain. This is now what I know I want.
Thank you.
And while
Yes.
the other thing is still hanging out, we use Christ consciousness and go, and I love you as you are right now.
And I
And
allow
this
it
is
to
where
be
I'm
the way
going.
it is. But this is where I'm going, and I know it's happening
Yes.
already.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, there's the condor and the eagle joining together.
Okay, so I'm in the right
going
space.
here,
Good.
and I'm at peace now. Yeah.
I'm
It's
relaxed
awesome.
now. Thank you for that. Okay. Thank you for that. Is so gorgeous. Wow. What a powerful interview. How amazing. Thank you for doing all of your inner exploration and curiosity and standing in the question so that you could deliver such clear guidance for us right now. I just really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for all that you're doing in reaching the world. If you'll let me, I'm going to hold these two things up. The abundance factor, this is
There's
Joe
Joe.
Vitale. Hi, Joe. So he's another one like you, Carrie, who's making waves and really helping people move into their self-empowerment. So, and I'm one of a number of contributing authors there, but that abundance factor is one of those toolboxes where people who are ready to start embracing, I am a powerful creator and I can create in the material world. I'm not just going to create higher consciousness. I'm going to bring it into this realm of consciousness brought into physical form, the bound energy. So there's a lot of neat tools in that to help people get there. And I'm just hoping that you and anyone else who feels inspired to join us on the Miracle Makers Cruise will check out the website. It's
So much fun.
miraclemakerscruise.com.
MiracleMakersCruise.com. Okay, I'm going to add all of those links into the broadcast. And when is that cruise happening?
It is in April. So it's April,
April
8th to the 15th. It encompasses Easter, actually, and my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday in advance.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
It's going to be an amazing time together. Now, the truth is, we don't have certainty yet, but there is a possibility that Dr. Bruce Lipton is going to join us. He and his wife live in Auckland, New Zealand for half the year, and they may be on board with us. We're going to see. So a friend of theirs, Sylvia Vallis, is my fellow keynote speaker. She's an 82-year-old wise grandmother energy who's been spiritually teaching for decades, and she's really powerful, really awesome.
That's beautiful. I'll contribute my yes, that's going to happen to the prayers on that one. And so it is. Yeah. So, well, great. So I'm going to direct everybody, look in the show notes for all the links to everything that was mentioned today in the broadcast. I'll even pop in the links for the books that were recommended for me and my little journey with my mama. And thank you for being on the show, and appreciate all this great wisdom.
Thank you. What a blessing. I love vibing with you. You've got such an amazing energy going on here.
I do. I loved it too. Okay, well, I'd like to give everybody kisses on the way out. So if you want to join me, we're going to give kisses. And in the meantime, I want to remind everybody, click like and subscribe on this episode and share it out with your friends so that it can reach more people in the community to find out these messages, because it's kind of important what was just said on this broadcast. It's important information to have. Okay, here we go. Here are the kisses. Thank you. Received. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And we'll see you next week on Soul Nectar Show. Bye.